Since you won your first election in your 20s, why not slow down, get a few more things done first, or at least finish what you start?
Ms. Fiorina, the board fired you. I just wondered why you think we should hire you now. Bankruptcy is a broken promise. Why should the voters believe the promises that you're telling them right now? Senator Rubio, you've had issues. You have a lack of bookkeeping skills. You accidentally intermingled campaign money with your personal money. It raises the question whether you have the maturity and the wisdom to lead a $17 trillion economy.
Why would you serve on a company whose policies seem to run counter to your views on homosexuality? A company called Manatech, with which you had a 10-year relationship, they paid $7 million to settle a deceptive marketing lawsuit in Texas, and yet your involvement continued. Why?
Mr. Trump says that he is capable of growing the economy so much that Social Security and Medicare don't have to be touched. Do you want to explain how that's going to happen, Mr. Trump? The leading Republican candidate, when you look at the average of national polls right now, is Donald Trump. When you look at him, do you see someone with the moral authority to unite the country?
Such a nasty question.
Yeah, well, it's all nasty, and it's all based on a desire to destroy these people. There wasn't any attempt to get any understanding, to learn what they stand for or what their policies are. It's laughable. It's a joke to even mention that as a possibility. This was a kill show last night. Those questions were not just bias. Those questions were not just unfair. Those were perfectly structured, mean-spirited bombs. The questions themselves did not require any answers. The questions themselves were designed to be what shaped public opinion in that debate. The questions themselves, the moderators, the assassins were attempting to characterize our candidates, and it didn't matter what our candidates said. That was the purpose of those questions. There is no doubt about this. The day ought to come where we stop giving them this opportunity. They're going to take it anyway, whether it's a debate format or the nightly news. They're going to do these kinds of things. Our people need to focus and spend most of their time on creating a bond with the American people, like Carson and Trump have done. That's how you blunt this stuff. You don't blunt this stuff by taking these people on and getting into a shouting match with them and telling them how they're rude, although that was a good line from Christie to her. Well, you know, John, when you're doing, even in New Jersey, would be called rude. It was a great line. But let's contrast this montage you just heard. Let's go back and listen to Anderson Cooper and Dana Bash and Juan Carlos Lopez ask questions of the Democrats in their last debate.
Secretary Clinton, though, with all due respect, Senator Sanders, you call yourself a Democratic socialist. How can any kind of socialist win a general election? We're going to have a lot more on these issues, but I do want to just quickly get everybody in on the question of electability. Secretary Clinton, is Bernie Sanders tough enough on guns? Senator Sanders, what would you do differently? Is she too quick to use military force? Senator Sanders, I want you to be able to respond. Who or what is the greatest national security threat? Secretary Clinton, with all due respect, do you want to respond? Do Black Lives Matter or do all lives matter? Secretary Clinton, what would you do for African Americans in this country that President Obama couldn't? Senator Sanders, what are you going to be able to do that President Obama didn't? Secretary Clinton, how would you address this issue? Why is your plan better?
Is that something that you would support?
Secretary Clinton, Governor O'Malley wants to open up Obamacare to millions of undocumented immigrants and their children.
Do you? Secretary Clinton, do you regret your vote on the Patriot Act? Governor Chafee, Edward Snowden, is he a traitor or a hero? Governor O'Malley, how would you be different than President Obama's administration? Secretary Clinton, how would you not be a third term of President Obama? Why should Democrats embrace an insider like yourself? Senator Sanders, are you tougher on climate change than Secretary Clinton?
There wasn't one gotcha. There wasn't one question that even got near whether or not these people are qualified. There weren't any characterizing of these candidates as buffoonish or as cartoonish. There were no references to any of the negatives of any of these people. Mrs. Clinton didn't get a question about her husband's philandering. She didn't get one question about her own questionable foundation with all of the dubious donations. The questions that happened on the email scandal were brushed over by Bernie Sanders. That this is what passes for tough questions of Democrats. What you just heard, that's what passes as tough questions. That's as much as they will ever face. This is as tough a questioning as any Democrat candidate will ever face. Here's Ted Cruze. Right away, Frank Luntz said that he has never had in his focus group these people with their dials recording their responses as they hear things. He has never had anybody get anywhere near the territory that Ted Cruze got in audience approval. When he finally got fed up with the line and nature of questioning last night and just tore into these assassins.
The questions that have been asked so far in this debate illustrate why the American people don't trust the media. This is not a cage match. Donald Trump, are you a comic book villain? Ben Carson, can you do math? John Kasich, will you insult two people over here? Marco Rubio, why don't you resign? Jeb Bush, why have your numbers fallen? How about talking about the substantive issues people care about? And Carl, I'm not finished yet. The contrast with the Democratic debate, where every fawning question from the media was, which of you is more handsome and wise? The men and women on this stage have more ideas, more experience, more common sense than every participant in the Democratic debate. That debate reflected a debate between the Bolsheviks and the Mensheviks. Nobody watching at home believes that any of the moderators has any intention of voting in a Republican primary. The questions that are being asked shouldn't be trying to get people to tear into each other.
It's not that. Look, I agree, but that's not what they were trying to do. They were trying to destroy each and every one of you, Senator Cruze, just with the question. They didn't care what you did with it. They didn't care what happened. They don't even care that you tore into them. To them, they got the questions asked, and nobody stopped them. Although, it did change in tone after this eruption from Cruze. But they didn't care. They didn't care what the answers were. They weren't even trying to stoke interaction between the candidates. The questions alone were the bullets. The cameras and the microphones were the guns. And the questions were the bullets, and it didn't matter after that. What happened after the question? Of very little practical interest as far as the moderators/assassins are concerned.